Yes.
I'm ready to go live.
Hi, we're live. Sorry, hit that too quickly. No, well, Mike's muted right now, as it should be. He's in the press he's in the press conference for
the only time Mike will ever be muted. Trust me.
Yeah, he's listening to the Leafs press conference and been involved in that for now. But we're gonna start while that continues on a little bit longer because we wanted to talk to you all about something. I wanted to tell you my Panther story, which is pretty funny. When I was down in Florida. So my son, who does a bunch of conservation type stuff, is involved with this group called Path of the Panther, which is trying to make sure the Florida panther, which is an endangered species, survives. And they're doing a bunch of different kinds of trying to get a bunch of legislation through, and they've had a lot of success lately. And they also work with the Florida Panthers in different situations. The Florida Panthers have given money to the Path of the Panther, so it's a really cool little hockey thing that I like because the hockey people are connected. I know the hockey people that are connected. He knows the nature people are connected. So we do it all together. So we were hiking and putting the trail cams up in different parks and things like that to try to help prove the Panthers' existence in those parks and get money for funding those parks. So, but the chances of actually seeing a panther live in the wild is like almost impossible. I mean, it's, you can see them on a camera, but you'll never see one live because they're so hidden and they're so just they're elusive cats. They're just
imagine if one were getting sick, though, you would see it. Like, they come out.
Yeah.
There are a lot of other type animals like that. And sometimes, like, unfortunately, if they're ill, that's when you're going to see them.
Right. You're going to see when there is a disease that's hurting the panther population right now, too. That's going through like a neurological disease that's causing them problems. They also get hit by cars, that they see them then, too. I mean, they're trying to run across the road, and they've done a lot of stuff with the highways down there in Florida to get people to drive slower and also to elevate the highway. So there's a path under the highway that the animals can run across that way. There's a bunch of different things. So we're walking along. Last day we were there for 3 days. I'm walking along, placing trail cams around. Someone is like, it's a panther preserve. So I'm like, that's pretty cool. It's, there's lots of panther. There's like little signs and stuff like that, protect the panther. I see someone has put a really big stuffed panther to about 50 feet to my right, and it's like Regal, like standing perfectly still, looking for like this, Regal, and I'm like, that's really weird. They would put a stuffed panther here in the middle of the forest. That's the first, but it didn't look like a real panther because it was absolutely frozen solid, and just like perfect in every way as far as like a stuffed animal would go. Like you've ever seen those big lions or big tigers they sell at fairs and things like that. That's kind of what it looked like. So I turned to my son and I said, it's funny, guys, here is stuffed panther. And I turned back and it was gone. And what we saw, and I saw, and the two of us looked to the side, we saw the tail of it as it just ran back into the woods. Apparently we had just happened upon it when we were walking and hiking, and we saw, and it was absolutely the most beautiful thing in the world, but just crazy shocking, like how, it was.
Yeah, that's cool.
I couldn't believe it. Yeah, I couldn't believe that it was there. I couldn't believe it. And it looked so fake. So my son, who does a lot of animal stuff like this, was out and saying, that one of the things he does when trying to spot animals, like different creatures, stuff like that, is you look for movement in the woods and stuff like that, and try to find, if you see any movement, you might be able to pick out something. Well, obviously for the panther, it's like the exact opposite. And we talked to people later, and they said this is the case that they freeze solid, thinking that you're just going to pass by them otherwise you're not going to see them. So this was really, really cool. So anyway, that was my little panther story.
All right, I got one little thing here. So in Major League Baseball the other day, Giovanni Gallego, who pitches for the Cardinals, had his hat removed from the game by the umpire, Joe West, who literally, he's 75 years old. He is, for whatever reason, this year especially, trying to really impose himself on the game in a lot of different ways. And so at the beginning of the year, Major League Baseball said, hey, we're going to crack down on pitchers, with using foreign substances, blah, blah, blah. And so they decided to take the hat away from this player who didn't have a foreign substance. And then post-game, his manager, Mike Schilt, started talking about it and said, look, I get what Rob Manfred's trying to do, but why is Joe West going after a guy that has a little dot on his hat when you could see guys clearly licking their hands, there's stuff in their gloves, and all of that is still not being cracked down on. And, of course, what he did mention is, and I think this is what fans forget, there's a lot of players that don't do any of that, and they're actually playing it the right way, and they're not cheating. Right. Now, I know there's a lot of people that like cheating and stuff. Look, Gaylord Perry made an art form out of acting like he was cheating after a while. He had gotten caught so many times, he just stopped doing it because the psychology was working. I don't mind if somebody has done it a few times and then works off of it that way and kind of fakes it. That's fine. If that gives you the mental edge, fine. But I understand what Schilt was saying. I think he is going to really strike a chord now with what he said post-game, because now baseball's got a real problem. They're not really cracking down on what they want to do, and Joe West has gone rogue. And I've met Joe West. He used to stay in my hotel, and to tell you that he is a wild man out of the baseball arena, he is. Everything you've ever heard about him is true. And now the guy's 75, and it really does seem like nobody's got a handle on him. And at some point, you got to have this guy doing a consistent job. And I think he is acting on his own in a lot of ways, with the way he's calling the strike zones, the way he's doing things. I think he's doing things on his own, and I don't think baseball is trying to stop him. And that'll be interesting to see how that works out.
Nobody's got a handle on him because he's got size 54 pants. That's why.
No, but I mean, honestly, if you talk about just what he's doing in the game,
I know.
He's been around.
He's running amok. He's a senior umpire, and nobody wants to really cross him.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it boils down to. But this would be the same thing if they let Jaromir Jagr continue to use an extra long stick or an extra curved stick, especially during shootouts in the NHL. And they didn't. I mean, for a little while, he was getting away with that stuff. And then after a while, they cracked down on it.
But what this tells you, Russ, is that it's a question of degree how much you cheat in baseball. Because when Michael Pineda slathered pine tar on the back of his neck, and, to the point that he was a dark-skinned Dominican, I believe, from Caribbean, and he thought that nobody could see that he had pine tar on his back, on the back of his neck, and he got called out during a Red Sox game and he got thrown out of the game.
It was the early days of HD television, and he got a rude awakening to how close the camera was getting now compared to what it used to do. That was the problem.
Yeah,
it's really interesting. Really interesting.
That's it.
Okay.
All right, here we go. 27, right? Okay. It is Thursday, 27th, 2021.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology. I don't get what Mike's doing. I don't know.
I was muted, so this was my.
Oh, okay. But you had a smiley face. That's really not That's not good representation there.
And I'm Eklund. We're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday. At this time, doing in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. We're actually not usually at this time. We're usually on 1 o'clock. We're on early today for a lot of different reasons. But we do have a lot to talk about. So we've got a couple teams that are now, a couple more teams that are eliminated. And let's start with Pittsburgh. Let's start with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the concept now that I'm hearing today that Sullivan could be in trouble, which is a crazy thought.
It's not crazy.
It's not crazy based on the 3 playoff first round eliminations, right? But at the same time, this is a guy that many people were talking about for Coach of the Year this year because of the job he did.
Well, let me start with this. And I know that you cannot normally single out one player as being responsible for a team's loss, but in my mind, the Pittsburgh Penguins were a better team than the New York Islanders. But unfortunately, Tristan Jarry was in goal for the Penguins. And, if we talked about the game 5 flub in double overtime, that was bad enough. But the fact that Casey DeSmith got hurt and that Legacy was the backup is the only reason that he did not get pulled after the 4-3 goal last night. Pittsburgh was up 3-2 early in the second period. They scored the opening goal. The Islanders came back. I think he had 2 goals on 4 shots at one point in the first period. It's 3-2. They're leading early in the second period. He gives up the tying goal. He gives up the go-ahead goal, 4-3. He allows the 5th goal to make it 5-3, and then Sullivan takes the timeout and doesn't pull Jarry. And the game is basically over with 3 goals in 3 minutes. I'm not blaming it solely on him, but if I had to divide up the responsibility for the loss of that series, Jarry is probably by 75 or 80% of the responsibility.
So, there's a few things at play here, Ek. Last year, Sullivan was in trouble and worked his way out of it. So we have to go back to last year. Now, Hextall's here. He's not Hextall's guy. So that's always an issue in any sport.
It's true.
Then you have the situation with the goalies here. I don't care who your backup is. You needed to get Jari out after the first goal, honestly.
Agreed.
By the time the second goal happened, that team was shell-shocked, and you weren't getting back in that game. And that is the problem here, is that for whatever reason, Sullivan had decided, and this may be where he goes down with the ship. Hey, you know what? I'm just keeping Jari in there. That's what I believe. That's what I'm doing. And honestly, Hextall could definitely use that against him in, the meeting they'll have in a week or so, and Burke too. It wouldn't shock me if that happens. We won't hear about that publicly, I'm sure. But again, look, Sullivan could be after the Rangers job too. He was a longtime assistant there,
and
he might want out. He may not even want to be there anymore.
And I'll give you the guy who makes a lot of sense for the Penguins if Sullivan does get fired or Sullivan does decide to leave, which is Rick Tocchet, former assistant in Pittsburgh, former teammate of Hextall in Philadelphia. That makes a lot with He played for the Penguins.
Yeah,
I could see that
he's a friend of Mario's.
Sullivan has, with Sullivan, you've got, also the Boston U connection with Drury too. So there's a lot of interesting stuff there too that really plays into it. And Drury, obviously, that Quinn came from that whole connection. There's a lot of different reasons why Sullivan could be the next coach of the Rangers, and I think it would be a really good coach for the Rangers in a lot of ways. The interesting thing about Sullivan, though, and the people have said this over and over again, is that he is. And I talked to Kevin Allen about this yesterday. We were talking on the phone, and people say that Sullivan is harder on his players than Tortorella is, and that he came up in the Tortorella system. He just doesn't. He's not as public about it as Tortorella is, but on his players behind closed doors, he's harder apparently. Look at Crosby, has just 2 points in the series, right? I mean, we can go after the goalie if you want to, which we should, but I mean, Crosby they can't win a 6-game series with Crosby with 2 points in it. That's just not going to happen. So I think at the end of the day, when you really look at this, you've got a tough situation for the Penguins to have to deal with to figure out what they're going to do next. They've now been eliminated by the Islanders 2 of the last 3 years in the first round. And in bad fashions, like they were swept 2 years ago, and this year, I mean, yes, I think the series turns on that bad play in Game 5 overtime as well. I think that Jari's clear. That's where because if the Penguins win that game somehow, it's obviously a different series. And
the Penguins dominated that overtime. They dominated.
They did. But then again, Sorokin, who was phenomenal, and 943 save percentage in this series, 4-0. Now as a playoff starter, it's hard to imagine that he hasn't just taken the job completely at this point. Moving forward, and
we'll see. Right now he's taking the job, but I can't tell you for sure Sorokin's not giving up the job, because again, when they play a different team like Boston, you don't know what they're going to be able to do to a goalie that's still inexperienced for NHL playoffs. And that'll be a big challenge for Sorokin. He's done great in this series. And look, the Penguins have a great offense, but there were some other things going on too in this series. And I look, the Islanders, full marks to their fans. I've been in the old building with that fan base at full capacity. I've heard it even louder than that. I've worn the opposing jersey, especially with the Rangers, and had people booing me and saying stuff as I've been in there. So I know what it could be like. So I was happy to see that. I was happy to see Palmieri sort of now waking up in the playoffs. He's still not at Butch Goring levels, but he's got 3 goals and he's got some key goals. Their offense has woken up. But the other factor that you have to look at now is the Bruins have had rest. The Islanders, even Trotz said, I think the fans kind of helped bring us through this series. Honestly, I don't know if we'd have won it without them. I think there is some sense to that, because I do think there was a point where the Islanders were teetering a little. So I don't think it's a guarantee that Sorokin makes it all the way through the Boston series. He'll start it though.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Islanders were opportunists in this series for sure. They picked their spots, and they had stretches where they can three quick goals like you talked about, or a couple of quick plays like this.
Goal on the stick, like that was come on. He passed it right to the player.
Well, the other thing was, and I said this before the game yesterday, and I said that it would be a factor whether the Penguins could force a 7th game. Unless he's hurt, something was off with Sidney Crosby, because he only had 2 points in the series.
He was getting cheap shotted
and
in the crease all series long.
And that will be an adjustment that Ron Hextall is going to have to make. again, you don't want to go to nuclear war here, but when a team is sending Matt Martin and Casey Zizekas and Cal Clutterbuck, and they're going at Crosby and they're cheap shotting him and they're cross checking him and doing whatever, it pays to have a guy like Ryan Reeves in your lineup to say, okay, you do that, I'm going to go after Barzal and I'm going to knock him through the wall.
Yeah, I mean, at some point you have to stop all that, though. I mean,
right, but they don't. That's the problem.
I know. And that was the reason Malkin freight trained Matt Martin, because he doesn't generally do that. But you know what? He was getting sick and tired of seeing that.
Yeah.
The problem was, like I said, 2 games ago, they basically in the crease threw Crosby on the net, and the net turned over. And his head hit the ice, and I was worried about him, and everybody was a little worried about him in that one. He comes back and plays in this one, and again gets like tackled to the ice. There has to be at some point a little bit of better refereeing. I know these guys get preferential calls. I get it.
Yeah.
But I just think in a lot of these games, and it's not just this game, in a lot of these games, there's a lot of stuff going on in the crease that's not getting called. A lot of dirty stuff with a lot of teams. And the Islanders had their fair share of it too. And
I think that people in the chat were hitting it right on the button when what you said there too. The Islanders did have their fair share of it, but I think that the Bruins are better at playing that dirty style than the Penguins are for sure. And the Bruins and the Islanders will have a war. I mean, they will have a war of a series.
We'll talk about it before the series starts. But I just looked it up because I was curious what the breakdown was. The record of the Bruins and the Islanders was 3-3-2.
Yeah.
So right down the middle. The Bruins will not take the bull crap that the Islanders do. Like Cizikas, Clutterbuck, and Martin is a very effective depth line. They constantly hit. They're physical all the time. You're gonna have Boston matching up, Richie and Frederick and Corrali, and it's gonna be hit after hit after hit.
Oh, it'll be a war.
It'll be a war. And if you try to target the perfection line, Marchand will stick his stick right up your what. So that it's going to be a war.
It's gonna be fun.
Is. And the only thing is, like I said, the Islanders now, luckily they did win it in 6, so they have a little time off, but they're not going to have a lot of time off. And they had a super physical series. I loved that series. That series was amazing to watch. I probably watched that series more than any other series this first round because the action was just nonstop. It really was.
Oh, it really was. And I think, I don't know how early this next series could start, but I guess the earliest would probably be Sunday, possibly.
Yeah, I guess it's Sunday.
Because what we have Saturday night, we already have a game. We have a game 7 on Saturday night now, right? Correct? Is that right? Yeah.
Friday.
Friday's game 7. Yeah. So Sunday's the timing is not working out well for the NHL here. They may want to get a game in on Saturday, even. Depending on how it plays out.
That would be the case if Montreal extends Toronto. Then there will be a Saturday night game.
Right. If Montreal does it, if Montreal gets eliminated tonight, then we're just down to one series, right?
Yeah, no, the first round will be over Friday night because the only series left will be.
Yes, they probably will put Boston and the Islanders on Saturday. I would bet they would do that.
Yeah.
The problem is, so it looks like Friday the Celtics are at home, and then Sunday they're at home if the series goes that long.
So it'd be Saturday, and
Saturday would have to be the day, no matter what.
Yeah.
And if Toronto eliminates Montreal tonight, then I could see that series starting on Sunday because it'll be Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. They'll want that Saturday night game for that series because of Hockey Night in Canada.
Right. So then what's happening here is slowly but surely the Great White North is now caught up with everybody else. Like we're back. We're kind of on level. It helps with Winnipeg sweeping and everything like that. And then this series possibly going out in 5.
Yeah. Flamester said Preds could force a game 7.
Right. The Preds could force game 7 tonight too. So I forgot about that aspect of things. So so maybe Saturday night. Maybe it doesn't start till Sunday then. Depending on how it plays out.
Well, Sunday wouldn't be the Bruins then because they get the first game, right? And the Celtics are playing. They're not going to do 2 in one day in that arena.
No, if Toronto would win tonight, it would be Toronto.
Sunday, but they'd probably do because they're going to do 2 games each day. It probably could be Tampa, Carolina if Carolina wins.
The Celtics game is a night game. They could play a 1:00 game, I suppose.
Yeah, but with overtime, possibility of overtime, they can't.
Yeah, they probably won't do it.
They could do it flip-flop. They could do the Celtics at 1.
And then they would have to change the game time then. And their new business partner TNT would probably have a big problem with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so the
Well, Wayne Gretzky will take care of it all, right?
Right.
Boston. I mean, no, not Boston. Sorry, the Penguins are gone, and that brings us to the the Battle of Florida, which also ended last night in a bit of an anticlimax. It wasn't as good as many of the other games. This was really the case of Tampa, just locking it down.
Did anybody think Tampa wasn't going to win that game? Anybody?
Yeah, no. I mean, I thought it could. I actually thought it was going to be a battle. I thought it would be better. I mean, to me, Tampa played the kind of playoff defense they have to play, and that they just got in. They just played strong playoff defense. I mean, the shots were down. I mean, when you saw the amount of shots that were happening in that series early on for both teams, it was kind of ridiculous. Like, I forget what was the games. Yeah, it was the first game that Knight played, I think. So game 5 where both teams had like 25 shots halfway through the game, and it was just insane. Yeah. Like that's like, so last night, the shots are way down. The defense was way better. And at the end of the day, I mean, Florida represented as well as they could have. I mean, they really did.
Yeah, but really, I mean, this series was contenders versus pretenders. I really do. I mean, because as much as
Oh yeah, for sure.
We had problems with Kucherov coming back after being out the entire year, and injuries to guys like Sergachev and Vasilevsky not playing up to the reputation of Vasilevsky. In the end, Florida simply, again, they didn't have Ekblad, who was their best defenseman. They're playing Mackenzie Weegar 27 minutes a night. They're depending on Gustav Forsling to be a top 4 defenseman. And, guys like they're depending on guys like Ryan Lomberg to score goals for them. They're just simply not, I mean, I give them full credit for a good year, but they're not good enough. But there are not many teams that are good enough to beat Tampa.
Well, no, they're not. To play Tampa, they're not, and especially without the best player. Not the best player, but the best defenseman. I mean, and I also have to think that that they had some guys that were hurt too. Like some of the
sure, absolutely, yeah.
As they went along, you could see it. Barkov especially, who missed some time in game 5 early. It just, you could see that he just wasn't himself.
He gutted it out. There's no doubt.
But Russ, their goaltending situation going forward is a train wreck because Dreger goes via free agency to whoever pays him.
That's what happens. Yeah.
Okay, that's going to happen. And now you have a $10 million backup probably in Bobrovsky, or at least a 1A, 1B scenario with Spencer Knight, who starts the last 2 games of the postseason.
You're still going to have to have a third goalie. With that setup, you have to have a third goalie. If you don't,
they will, and I think it's actually the perfect situation for Spencer Knight to come into next year. I mean,
you think Bob's going to help him?
No, Bob will play half the games, and it'll help. I'm not saying Bob will actually help him himself, but Bob being there will help him.
You need a goalie that will help him. I don't think having Bob there is almost going to be like having Brizgalov in Philly with Bob. I mean, help him one bit.
I was listening to the Islanders radio broadcast last night driving back, and they were talking about how great of a teammate Varlamov was, especially with Sorokin.
Yeah.
Being fellow Russians, he helped them along. He helped them learn English. He says he's a great teammate. It doesn't matter that they were competing. I don't get the impression that Bob is going to do that with Spencer Knight. He's going to see Spencer Knight as competition and as a threat, even though he's making $10 million. You think, okay, I'm going to make that money no matter what. So why don't I help this kid? But no,
there was something else. There was something else that you may not even know. There was an article yesterday in the Seattle Times that is stating there is a chance that Joel Quenneville could still end up as the coach of the Seattle Kraken and leave the Florida Panthers. And so now, this is a thing now, because if that happens, then they have to go on a coaching search. You have to see what that coach thinks of their goaltending situation.
Yeah.
Because we already know what Quenneville thinks of the goaltending situation. He'll start Spencer Knight whether he's ready or not, because he doesn't like Bob. Bob burned his bridge with Quenneville for sure.
I mean, if he went with a journeyman who had no real experience
for a season and a half last year, he started doing it.
And then he's going to go with Spencer Knight, who's the top prospect in the organization.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's no question.
So there's a little bit of uncertainty there that if all of a sudden if Quenneville leaves, and he might, because we were saying yesterday, the article states, and rightly so, Dale Talon was the guy that brought in Quenneville.
Yeah.
Quenneville's a teammate. of Francis. So there's a tie there. We don't know how well Zito and Quenneville really get along because Quenneville doesn't really get along with any GM.
Yeah, I mean,
he didn't get along with Stan Bowman.
No, from what I've heard, they got along. They get along very well, and not just hearing that from just talk, but also I know that even going back to when Zito was interviewing for the Flyers position, and the Flyers were talking, there was a lot of Flyer Quenneville talk at the time, that the Quenneville could come to Philadelphia, and I even heard back then that that's something that I think that was part of the pitch, was that Zito could get Quenneville. Zito knew Quenneville really well, had a good connection, so I think there's a good relationship with him. Now, he might want a different kind of challenge. He might want to, who knows? There's all different, and I don't know that Francis doesn't have a better relationship with him. I mean, Zito, when he was an agent, was based in Chicago, so he's part of the, so that he was often at that arena. He knows Chicago. He's known people for a really long time, and I think that he's the agent for Antti Niemi. At the time that Niemi was in, so Zito had different relationships, different kind of situations with Quenneville. So there's a lot of different things there for sure. I don't know. I think that I just think that Florida, they did run out of steam. They did show a lot. They worked their tails off for sure. They worked as hard as any team I've seen work. Honestly, I mean, I thought, and even last night. Even last night, they worked their tails off. You have to. I mean, to beat Tampa, it's just really hard. And when I look forward to, I was talking to Kevin, who wants Carolina to thinks Carolina has a better shot at Tampa than Nashville has, which is obviously the case. Wanting to see Carolina in the next round, which I think Carolina Tampa would be another great series. But at the end of the day, you can't beat the fact that they just, at every position, at offense, at defense, and at goalie, they've got some of the best players in the league in Tampa. Like all three positions, and when you have that going on, it's like, geez, you got Hedman, on defense, Vasilevsky, and then Kucherov and Stamkos up top. It's just like when you have the best at every position.
And they have role players. The biggest thing on them is what they've got as the top guys, but they've got the role players too, and they're loaded with role players. They've been drafting and developing as well as any team in the NHL for the last 7-8 years.
Yeah, when you're pulling a guy like Ross Colton out there, and all of a sudden he's got a couple goals in the playoffs, whereas a couple years ago, didn't even hear of who the hell Ross Colton was.
They've done a great job, and so is Florida. I mean, Dale Talon did a good job at picking up young players in Florida too. So that's what you see now. You're seeing a lot of Talon's guys right now coming up through the system. I think that. So let's move on though to. So that we have any other games? Oh yeah, so obviously Minnesota. Let's go to the Wild. The Wild extending it. We have at least one Game 7, which is all you want Game 7s. Especially this first round. This first round is such a great round of hockey. I get really sad when we get eliminated because the thing about this round is that there are 8 series obviously in the first round, and there's 7 playoff series the rest of the way. So you have the first round is so full of playoff series that it's sad when we start getting down to like one game a night. Although I do enjoy focusing on one game. I do want to see every game. So that's why we'll forever say the bubble was the greatest thing ever. Like that you can sit and watch every game.
Somebody posted a GIF on Twitter of. It's the famous meme from Seinfeld of Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Jason Alexander and them all dancing for joy and jumping for joy. That they said, here's a picture of the Colorado Avalanche management. Because really, sending that to series to Game 7, even if Vegas wins, it extends Vegas. It makes them empty their gas tanks a little more, and that's going to be a big help.
Two things happened for Colorado. There was a lower body injury for Newhook. That gives him more time to heal in case they want to use him. And Bowen Byram now is coming off of the injured list. And Bowen Byram could be a hell of an ad for them on the blue line.
That's an enormous ad. I mean, you saw him when he was he stepped right in and was a top 4 defenseman in the NHL. In a way that we haven't seen in a long time. I felt like that, like a guy that could step up that and look that confident that quickly.
Other than Cale Makara's teammate, it's true.
Other than Cale Makara's teammate, right. So, Colorado, when you're watching Tampa last night, I'm just thinking to myself, man, Colorado, Tampa Stanley Cup final. That would be something. That would be something to watch. I mean, the NHL might not love it because it doesn't have the whole, doesn't have. I mean, Colorado's a pretty good size market.
I can think of a couple other matchups that would be.
I mean, from a talent standpoint, that's the best matchup.
I just think Colorado, Tampa is ridiculous, right?
No, that would be the best from a talent standpoint. But for the Wild, here's the thing, Ek. I watched one of the pregame interviews with a guy who I've known pre-draft, Kevin Fiala, and I followed him forever. And he gave a candid interview to the point because his English isn't great.
Yeah.
And sometimes when guys' English isn't great, they have to pretty much just get to the point because they don't know how to dance around it because they don't know the language well enough.
Yeah.
And he basically said, when asked a question about Vegas and how hard their defense was, he was basically like, listen, in the offensive zone, they haven't been that good on defense in our offensive zone, in our end. So we've actually, he said, we're not worried about that. We could get past that. So he basically said, you know what? Their defense isn't that good. And he was right.
No, he's beyond the couple guys. There's no question. I mean, when they had to move Nate Schmidt, to get this thing done, we all said it's not like they just added Pietrangelo to a great team. They added whatever the difference is between Pietrangelo and Nate Schmidt, there is a difference there, obviously, but
it improved their defense, but it did not by leaps and bounds.
And it didn't really help their power play, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. No, it really didn't.
And I'm not counting Vegas out because, look, they have enough players that I think they could bull through this and win this game. But it's possible it can get extended. But I was blown away by what Fiala said, and they showed it yesterday. Now, in revisionist history, although I don't think I know how I felt about it. I'm not sure. I don't remember how you felt about it when Fiala and Granlund were traded. I think at this point, that's a bad trade. That was bad for Nashville because Fiala's got a bright career ahead of him, and Granlund's maybe got another year or two of okay hockey.
I think, Fiala is, heads and shoulders above Granlund in my mind. Granlund has played really well in the playoffs. Like he
definitely had a resurgence. He did.
And there's a lot of interesting things going on, in Nashville that we'll talk about in a little bit here when we play a preview tonight. But there are so many, I don't know, like fascinating lines here to go with this game because I have to just say that first of all, it is a little bit like Mike said. This is boring hockey. There's no question about it. At times, there were hardly any shots in the game last night. At all. Like it was crazy. Where the shot totals were like in the low 20s for both teams, I think.
But if Minnesota wins that way, far be it from me to say they shouldn't play that way. It
works for them, right? But I agree with you.
5 Devils all over again. Play low event hockey, win 1-0. Depend on your goaltender, who's a veteran guy who's been able to. He has stolen 2 wins in this series. Not so much yesterday, but Game 5 when they were outshot 40-14, and Game 1 when they won 1-0 in overtime. I have to give Cam. I don't think Cam Talbot's a great goaltender, but he's been able in certain situations. He played good in the bubble for Calgary last year, and he's playing great this year for Minnesota.
Honestly, as much as we mentioned Zito and the job he's done, Bill Guerin has done an equally good job.
Bill Guerin is my GM of the year. If I'm gonna go with GM of the year,
probably is the GM of the year at this point.
I think he is. I think Zito's in there in the talk as well, of course, but yes. I think that Guerin is the GM of the year, and I really feel. And the one move that I constantly. I will say that I was 100% wrong on right now as it stands right now is this Cam Talbot move. I just really did not see that as the right way to go.
With that one. None of us loved it.
Yeah, I really and really at the end of the day, geez, give Guerin credit for that one because
it was funny too. Yesterday there was a thing going around on Twitter. Who do you want to see lift the Stanley Cup, right? And it was on Facebook actually, and so I wrote Jared Bednar, and someone like Russ, you're on the Avs bandwagon again. And I'm like, listen, I picked them last year. They weren't that far out of it. And so, I picked them again this year. But the idea is this. What was it, 2017? They were in last place, dead last.
Yeah.
And people were like, and if you remember, this show was very kind to Jared Bednar in the sense that we were like, he has inherited garbage here. Like, it was bad. The whole situation was bad.
That could be the most well-timed last place finish in the last 25 years, not only because not only because they got a high draft pick out of it. I think that was the Byram pick.
Yeah, that's the Byram one, I believe.
Okay, but that was the year that McKinnon went to restricted free agency after his ELC and gets signed to a long-term deal for 6.6. I think it was 6.25.
Yeah,
and that is the biggest bargain in the history of the NHL right now. The way McKinnon is playing at 6.25. It's a steal.
Well, we got to give Jared Bednar credit here because from then to now, if you did a what was it then and what was it now kind of meme, it's unbelievable. I mean,
it really is. It really is.
Be getting tons of credit too, obviously.
Oh yeah, no question. But the Vegas Knights, though, honestly, when you can look at the series in hindsight a lot of different ways.
Hold on, one thing I don't remember. Funky saying he remembers us calling Sakic the worst GM in the NHL. I don't remember anybody saying that. I know I didn't remember anybody on this show
saying that. I mean, we find the tape, we'll admit to it, but I never did.
There was a
Mike. I think Mike took a shot.
No. Let me. Okay, there was a lot of criticism of Sakic for him waiting on the Matt Duchene deal.
Okay.
He's not pulling the trigger. This is bad. He was right. He was patient, and then he beat Ottawa over the head in that deal. And but he hadn't really made any kind of move up until that point, and then every move he's made since then has been great. So I mean, it's tough to really evaluate a general manager when he hasn't done anything. But it's like, okay, he's got to make this move. And the fact that he hasn't made it, I think that was rightful criticism at that point.
Yeah, I'm not saying you made it up, Funky. I'm saying excoriated. I don't know if we excoriated.
We just I gotta remember. I mean, I remember being very critical.
Mike said it's true. We definitely were critical of that. He's right about
Duchene,
that.
of not moving Duchene earlier. That was something we talked about a lot.
We were critical of that, no question.
I definitely was critical of that at the time. But gosh, what Duchene and Johansson are still not doing in Nashville is just astonishing. I want to finish one thought on the Knights for a second here, because it's easy to look at them now and say, they're still good. They still could very easily win this series. They're still a 7th game, and I'm not trying to write the obituary here, but I'm saying that, if Fleury doesn't stand on his head in a couple games in this series, it's over already too. So the reality here is that there's something wrong with the Knights. I mean, and they're not.
They're not fast.
They're not fast.
No, they're not what?
They're not fast.
Even I know, which is
Angelo. If you notice, he doesn't skate the puck up the ice. He makes long stretch passes because he's not the fastest defender.
And this was my thing all the time with them. And this is why the Gallant thing was weird and everything. They started off purely being fast. Like that was what they were. They played fast, and the reason
that
they
was
were successful.
Gallant, definitely.
That was their whole thing. They played, and I said their first year. The thing that made them amazing was taking young players who were used to playing the game at an incredibly fast speed, and that's what they did. And they played faster than anybody else. And other teams tried to catch up for a while, and they did catch up eventually. But then what happens is they go out and they sign a whole nother line on top of their first line, which has of players that aren't super fast. But
McCrimmon went out and got bigger, tougher, slower veterans that he felt like were going to grind it out in the playoffs and make up for what the other team didn't have, and he only got it partially right.
Oh yeah, and that was a reaction to losing in the Stanley Cup Finals to Washington, who out physicaled them, which I just think was the wrong. I mean, that finals was so close; they could have won. They could have won just as easily.
They definitely could have won. There's no question.
So why did you have to make huge systematic changes? You know what I mean? Like they were close enough there.
Because you have an owner who wants to win. Before he dies.
Right. And I respect that. And obviously, we had one here in Philly, the same kind of situation. And I love those kind of. If you're a fan, you just love those kind of owners because your team's always interesting. But the fact that this team, when pressured now in the playoffs, has shown that they can't score goals in pressure situations. Vegas just can't score. Like last night, to not be able to score a goal last night in that situation was astonishing to me. And remember what last year against Dallas, they had like one goal in the series. It was crazy, that series.
We've got breaking news here. This is astonishing.
Go ahead.
Again, I have been saying I would sue Dominic Ducharme for malpractice as a coach.
Yeah, me too.
Today he's proving it. He is inserting Eric Gustafsson instead of Alexander Romanov.
What? the hell is he thinking?
And in the elimination game, he is going all offense.
No. What he's doing is he's putting a revolving door around the blue line on the blue line that somebody will just walk through. Thank you very much, Dominic Ducharme.
Oh my gosh. What is the benefit to that at all?
I'll tell you what the benefit is. The benefit is that Montreal has not scored a power play goal in the series, and they're putting in Gustafsson to be the point guy in the power play. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's that. And there's one more thing. I had noticed in a couple of the Montreal games that Petrie, while he is a very good defenseman, and he's definitely not a Norris guy, when people were, he could be in the conversation. He just shouldn't win it. He's not great at bringing the puck up the ice and getting into the offensive zone. At times, he's a little clumsy at it. And because they don't have Romanoff in there, they don't have a single guy that can do it. And so now they're going to go with Gustafsson, who, by the way, half the times gets the puck.
We've seen Gustafsson plenty this year. Russ and I have live, and it's just and when you watch him live, there are moments when he's impressive. Like he'll make some. He's very much as like, what is he, Swedish, Gustafsson? Yeah. A Swedish Gus Pierre. Like we've always said, it's just like he does very
he's
similar.
The same guy. He's exactly the same.
They're exactly the same. They look the same. If they switched jerseys and played in a game, we wouldn't know that they had done it. That's how similar they look. Like literally, if he wore Gus Pierre's jersey and Gus Pierre wore Gustafsson's jersey, you would not know that they'd done it.
Pierre is better defensively.
Barely, Mike. And he's better overall, but better defensively. But here's the thing about this: it's just like, not playing Caulfield early in the series. They're playing him now. Okay, that's great, but still not playing some of the younger players and giving them significant time. And then
I'm just talking about in-game changes. Can we have any kind of adjustments?
In-game changes have been horrendous, and you can see Price is pissed about it. Like you can see in Carey Price. The Carey Price knows this is absolutely. You got to know that Carey Price looks at this call and is like, what the hell is it? To me,
2 days ago, I saw it after he was making all the great saves, the one from Marner and everything else.
Yeah.
The third goal went in. Price just looked like,
he is.
What else do I have to do? Honestly,
he's got to be like. I mean, because what's happening here? It feels as if, and this is going to be very controversial to say this, but it feels as if this move to me is Ducharme and Bergevin saying, being able to say in the future, well, we had to play those guys. Our young guys weren't ready yet. And
right.
It's like setting up an excuse for them to lose this series because they know they're good. They know they're going to lose this series, and they're setting it up already, saying like, yeah, we wanted to play those guys, but they weren't ready yet. So that gives them more time. So it's like a job preservation.
I almost think that he's playing Gustafsson, and then he kept Stahl in the lineup to justify the trades that he made at the deadline.
He did that.
They gave up draft picks for Gustafsson, draft picks for Stahl, and it's like, okay, well, I have to justify the fact that I made these moves. If I don't play these guys, then those moves are stupid. That just adds to the criticism.
Oh my gosh.
And then, Caulfield should have been in there from the very beginning, but they didn't put him in there because they didn't want the bad matchup of him on the road. Playing against like Matthews or Tavares or whoever. So I did just on the other side of the page here. Not that it's going to affect the game tonight, but extremely encouraging to see John Tavares skating at Arena this morning, which is he's a week out from the hit. He's still probably, I'd say, at least a couple weeks away. But if it's a couple weeks away, that's probably at some point during the series with Winnipeg if they win tonight. So it's very encouraging. And Nick Foligno also skated, so the Leafs are getting good news.
No, that's an incredible story. Everybody wants to see him get back out. It's one of the scariest things we've ever seen.
I think it'll take him until maybe game 3 of the next series. That's my guess.
Yeah, I would think something like that too, depending on how the series went.
Depending on how it's going, right? If they're up 2-0, he may not go in.
Yeah, I think that that there comes a point at which that they don't use them until they have to. They're going to have to use them at some point here.
I mean, got to get back to skate.
I mean, this is inspirational for Toronto though to see. Apparently Tavares was making sure that he contacted all of his teammates, all of his friends via Zoom while he was at home, saying, I'm okay. Don't worry about it. Just worry about the game. And now, he showed up yesterday at the building. Now he's on the ice. He's showing that eventually he's going to get back. And that's encouraging for them. Let's just win because we'll get him back at some point. And that's a big.
I heard during the middle of this series, Mike, there's going to be a Bill Barocco seance going on that maybe you want to take part in.
And they'll play Mission Cap as the background.
It'd be nice to play that in the background. Why not? Sure.
I mean, also the play of the how Deschamps has used Kotkaniemi is another one.
Yeah, I mean that's abysmal too.
Well, absolutely abysmal. I mean, 12 minutes last game, 12 minutes 2 games before that. He scores a goal. Actually, has 2 shots has put shots together in very few shifts. Just trying to create anything at all. Takes a penalty, and that was because you can see he's just trying. When guys like Kotkaniemi are taking penalties, they're just trying to make something happen. Because on the few shifts they have out there, they're frustrated and they're going out there and they're just trying to do something. So they're going to, they don't want to have an invisible shift, as they say. So they go out there and they're hitting, they're moving, they're doing everything they can. All that you're doing by not playing these guys in the roles that they need to be playing in is you're hurting your future. Yeah. Because your chances of beating this team are minimal anyway.
Again, here's the problem, Ek. You've got a guy in there that is not thinking about the future. He is only thinking about this postseason because he's an interim, and you've got an interim coaching the playoffs, which is never a great situation.
No, and it's rare that you ever see an interim coaching the playoffs.
Now,
we have seen a few that have gone pretty far, like last year in Dallas, right? It's rare.
Larry Robinson with the Devils, but
there's a couple.
But one thing I think Leafs fans should be fearful of is they're saying all the right things. Don't be overconfident. This has got to be our best game to put the Habs away. Yeah. But the Habs are going to play desperation hockey, and I always like notes in history and fearful of them. Today is the 28th anniversary of the Great Western Forum screw job, the Kerry Fraser call on Doug Gilmour.
Oh
man! All right, drink, everyone, drink. Yep. This is the anniversary. Everyone, cheers to that. I remember watching it in a bar with fellow Hockey Buzz writer Dan Wells.
The Great Western Forum screw
when it happened. Yep, we were watching it in the bar.
When you finally have positive memories,
we had a game there's a couple memories of mine that are attached to men's hockey league games, and that was one of them. Dan and I were in a men's hockey league, and we played the game. And still stinking of my goalie equipment. Walked into a bar, just smelling horribly, and him smelling. There's nothing worse than sweaty goalie equipment.
Oh, it's the worst.
And at that point,
a nice bar, we would always jokingly say how long until someone notices that we just stink? That's what we would say, because we were just going to watch hockey games. It was at the, where we went. Oh man,
in a bar it takes a while. So,
do you know the jug handle in Brest? Do you know that? The jug handle. Yeah. That's where I was for that.
I passed it. I've never been in it.
Well, I was at my home in suburban Buffalo, and I believe it was either that night or when the Leafs lost in 2002 that I broke a bowling ball on the basement floor.
It's hard to break a bowling ball.
Well, I slammed it pretty hard and being pissed off. So I'm
not a bowler. I mean, there was probably some good rolls in that ball.
Funky just asked a really good question. Do I remember where I was Game 4 of the 1997 Stanley Cup Finals, which is what? That's the Red Wings Flyers Stanley Cup Finals, right?
Yeah, that's the Darren McCarty.
Yeah, that's the Darren McCarty game. I do know exactly where I was because I was on tour at the time. And that was we were desperately trying not to find out what was happening in the games, and that was one of the ones. And so we could watch it on video, which we had the video going back. We had brought a VCR. We're taping back in our hotel room, and we drove through a Wendy's to get some food after the game, and then go back and watch the game. And while we're driving through the Wendy's, someone's like, "Oh man, I can't believe that happened in the Flyers game." We just heard the entire thing. It was so pissed off. So I do remember Game 4 very well.
I remember cheering on Darren McCarty. I know every Flyers fan hates it. But back then, as a fan, they had eliminated the Rangers, and I was rooting for the Red Wings. So,
Flamster's asking, how did I do that? Well, when you take a bowling ball and you hold it over your head and you slam it down on a concrete floor, it tends to break. One thing to break, either the floor or the ball.
Wow, my other great memory of
what size? Hold on, how many pounds is that ball?
It was a 16-pound.
16, yeah.
You're rolling a 16-pounder, Mike. That's pretty impressive.
That's pretty impressive.
That's like I'm like a 9-pound guy, like I'm like just throwing them down.
That's a kid's ball.
I get the smallest balls. My fingers barely fit in the holes, and I roll like two consistently in the 260s.
Heck is one of those.
You do not.
You want to take me up on that, Russ? You want? I will challenge you guys to bowling any day of the week. I'm way better than you think.
I stink at bowling. I'll go.
Heck is one of those bowlers that doesn't stick his fingers in the ball.
My high game is like a 197. That's it.
My actual high game is a 233. But anyway, here we go. So this is so the other one is this that I had to mention was the famous, and Mike, this anniversary I'm sure is coming up at some point, so you'll bring it up too. The last was the Jeremy Roenick goal against the Maple Leafs in overtime.
We already passed that one.
Oh, yeah.
Already passed that one. But that also was another. That was a hockey, a men's hockey thing where I was about to go. We were about to play. We were all in our equipment.
Wait, you weren't covering that series?
No. Back then, no way.
Because that was the first one I covered with the Flyers.
Nope. So I was not yet. I didn't start till after the lockout covering things live.
Funky is very funny here. The ball was 19.67 pounds.
Yeah.
There you go.
I will tell you this, Zach. The best thing that was going on in that series for me was Roenick and Ty Domi were chatting up a storm, and I was going back and forth between the two of them and getting
amazing.
All kinds of quotes pre-game for my website. It was a field day.
Well, what I will always remember about that play, and the irony of the Kapanen's son eventually becoming a Leaf, was the Sammy Kapanen getting clobbered, trying to get off the ice and being pulled onto the bench from his knees.
And he fell down like 3 times getting to the bench.
And the play after concussion protocol was brought into the league, that play would have been whistled down as soon as he fell the first time.
It would have been in there, and and the Leafs might have won. That was a hell of a Flyers-Leafs series, by the way. That was a series.
It was a great series to cover. It was
tremendous. Flyers and Leafs had 2 of those series kind of back to back, didn't they? If I remember right.
Game 2003, it went 7 games. Keith Primo scored in Game 7. I think it was like 3-1 or 4-1, and then the next year they lost.
I remember being at the elimination game, not knowing, well, am I going to cover here in Philly or am I going to go to Tampa? And I still was thinking I'm going to make my plans for Tampa, and that was the overall thought that the Flyers were not going to beat Tampa in the next round. And so I still, but I remember thinking about it like, hey, are the Flyers actually going to get to the Stanley Cup at that point? And they just weren't ready. They had good players, but they just weren't there.
That was the playoff that Keith Primo must have been doing some kind of special drugs, that playoff run, because Keith Primo was that was the best you ever saw. The best I've ever seen a performance by a player like that. Primo was just
Toronto, of course.
No, but against everybody, and that's where isn't that the same year he scores the or the 5 overtime game? Isn't that the same season we're still talking about?
It might be. I'm not sure.
I think the 5 overtime against Pittsburgh.
I think it was the same season. I remember there was a Flyer Ranger game that was an afternoon game with like a 1:00 game that went like triple overtime. And I remember interviewing Primo about that because I was at the Garden, and his big crack was, is it still light out? I don't even know what time it is anymore. That team was playing a lot of games like that.
His 5 overtime goals in 2000.
Okay, so Larry, that makes sense. All right, so let's get
Primo
into
he was in a lot of overtime games. He was.
Yeah, Primo at his best was a very good player. So let's move. Let's get into. We talked a little bit about. So we're obviously talking about Toronto, Montreal. We got to get out of here really soon. So with Toronto, Montreal, like Mike, you said that they got to be ready for them. I think that's true. I think they have to be ready. I think Montreal will go down with a fight, but it's got to be so incredibly frustrating if you're in that locker room right now and these kind of moves are being made. Just to sit there and say, you just want your best players on the ice. You just give us our players to play. And I mean, are they afraid that they're going to hurt Romanov's career here by putting him in a situation?
They're hurting it by not playing him because he's good.
They genuinely think, I think they're wrong. They genuinely think that the more experienced lineup is the better lineup. And right now the Leafs it's 3-1 in the series. The Leafs have scored 12 goals in the series. The Habs have scored 4 goals in 4 games. So right now, the Gustafsson move makes sense only if you think it's going to be a close game and you think a power play and scoring on the power play is going to be the difference between you winning and losing. I think they need more than that, but they don't have a 50-goal scorer sitting in the press box.
No. But Eck, this is something I railed about when I was asked about it yesterday on Sirius, and it's worthy of railing about it again today. You are putting basically the organization, whether they get eliminated or not, you are putting it in the hands of a guy like John Merrill, who's a 1-year player. He's a UFA after this year. He is not going to. He probably won't be on the Canadiens next year. And you want Romanov to play there for 10 years. He had a good season, so it's not like he's coming in cold. And you're going to do that. It's the same thing. Like Kulikov comes in, and Kulikov keeps getting played in the playoffs. He's not that good a player, but yet we're going to play Kulikov because we have a guy who's not as experienced. Well, I get the playoff experience thing, but if you have 4 or 5 guys that are experienced, you can play the one youngster with them, and it's not going to hurt you.
Absolutely, you can.
You want the contrast there. The Leafs, the Leafs are putting in Rasmus Sandin again tonight after playing Dermott in game.
That's smart.
And Rasmus Sandin has
Sounds like the Leafs want to win. Sounds like the Leafs want to win, and the Canadiens want to win excuses to not as to why they didn't win. That, to me,
has less experience than Romanov does at 20 some odd games. So
No
the other question is you videoed the Bud Light guy, the can, and the crowd, but like shouldn't it have been a Molson can? Like I'm surprised it was a Bud Light one.
Well, it's Bud Light it's that new non-alcoholic thing that they're. I don't know.
Russ, I think in Canada, Bud Light is distributed by Molson.
Oh, okay.
It might be. It's either Labatt's or Molson.
It is bizarre. It was. That did occur to my wife too because she drinks a lot of beer. That she was like, that's why would Bud Light be? Why would Bud Light be? Why would Canadians want Bud Lights? They got all this good beer up there. Why would they want a Bud Light up there?
You want to know something? I know a few Canadians. This is kind of funny. The beers that we don't like Killian's Red or Bud Light, they love in Canada. And then is it just the grass is always greener thing or what? Yeah, it's a grass is greener thing because I go to Canada and I'm like, you know what? I love Molson and I like Labatt's and everybody's just like, we don't really like that here. So I think it is like that.
But in
Cameron Young question. Go ahead, Mike, finish your thought there.
No, I was just getting Buffalo, like Molson and Labatt's is held at a higher level than American beers like Coors Light or Michelob Light or Bud Light.
I'll tell you the best beer that used to be when back when my brother was in college and for a long time when all my friends were in college, I would go somewhere near the Buffalo area if I was visiting the SUNY system and get Bradors at one of the local places and bring the Bradors back. And that was a nice kick for us.
Molson Bradors, 9% alcohol. That was the reason why everybody loved them. You could get drunk.
And I used to pick it up and throw it in my trunk.
All right, so Cameron Young, one of our favorites in the chat room. He this question. The question is: Nashville force a Game 7. What are your thoughts, guys?
I think it's possible. I actually think if they force a Game 7, it's their advantage at this point for the series if they are to get there, because then you have to believe there's a question in the locker room who starts Game 7 for the Canes in net. And I think that's the biggest issue would be that.
Now, Eck, I thought of you when watching watching that.
Mike, I think we'll be off in two.
Thank you. Continue. When watching that overtime between Carolina and Nashville and seeing your favorite player, Ryan Johansson, do an Olay on Jordan Stahl in front of the net in overtime, I thought immediately of you and how there's so much love between you and Ryan.
But he did have a couple goals in the series, like he does.
But he's also been benched a lot. He's not playing on the power play, which is like, but he has, and he's mad about it. From what I've heard he's mad about the fact he's not playing on the power play. Does Johansson have any right to sit there and be mad about that?
No, he doesn't have any right to be mad. No,
he doesn't have any. I mean, he has been absolutely awful and done nothing. I mean, he has a couple goals in the series. Great. I mean, he should have a lot of goals.
What do you think about that goaltending situation? If it gets to a Game 7, don't you think Carolina now would have to have a long discussion on who they're starting in Game 7?
Yes. Yes, I do. And I think that they would probably go to Mrazek because they would probably be
I think there's
afraid.
a good chance they would.
They would be afraid of screwing up this kid, and I think that, putting him in a game 7, that situation like that, when you're the favorite it's a different situation than the Spencer Knight thing where you're not the favorite, but they're the favorite, they're supposed to win.
Right.
And if he doesn't win, that I do think could really mess things up. I start the chart rumors, by the way. Randy asked in the chat room, when do you start the rumor chart? I started after the first round, actually. So yeah, I'm already working on it now. And because we have, June 2nd is the draft lottery. So we'll get into draft lottery simulation tomorrow. I have a big announcement.
Enough, it's like a favorite day of mine now in the hockey season. It shouldn't be, but it is.
It is fun. I mean, I think it's a lot of fun. I think they do. I think they've made it into kind of a cool event. They handle it pretty well.
I'm not even sure they have. I think I'm just elevating what they've done with it in my own mind.
Yeah.
Well,
if Montreal loses tonight, do they fire their GM? Is this it?
I do think there's a chance that Ducharme and Bergevin could go at the same time. I do think there's a chance of that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
The only thing is, I don't know how many years Bergevin has left on his deal.
Yeah, I don't know either. Could they hire?
Well, he's negotiating a new deal right now with the.
This is a bad time.
So he's a UFA then, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's a chance. There's a chance they could.
I think they do. I think they do. And wouldn't this be an interesting situation for Rutherford to go to? And the question
I don't think he would do it.
Would they do a non-French GM? They've never. I don't know. Listen, the interesting guy here for me would be the player agent.
Pat Brisson.
Yeah, would he be the next GM? Because I
think that time has passed. I'm not even sure he wants to anymore.
The story I heard long ago was that they went to him before they went to Bergevin.
Yeah.
And they said, they wanted him to be the GM, and he said no, but make Bergevin the GM, and I'll so I have a little more time doing this, and then I'll think about it.
Right.
So the interesting thing is, so he's the one who actually told them to make him. It would be fascinating if he was the GM, and if he, he's made so much money. Having talked to GMs like guys like Bozito who were agents to become GMs, there's a big thing of
it works and it doesn't work. Like Zito was working. The Mets hired an agent in Brody Van Wagenen, and he was a horrible GM. So it's like he signed a good player contract. His best player he extended, which was good, but everything else was bad.
What is more? I think a bigger question is who they hire as a coach.
That is a bigger question. Because that would depend on the GM, right? So I think that would. So I mean, the difference.
The question would have to be: would they give Bergevin enough leash to hire another coach? And that's the tough. That I'm struggling with that right now.
And I think that
this is Montreal after all.
Yeah, this is Montreal. It's a whole different. They are tired of not being contenders. They have the player. They're building things the right direction if they don't screw it up. Rutherford's not done, by the way. He definitely is going to be back in the NHL next year.
I just don't know if Montreal makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think that there's a lot to think about there for sure. There's big questions. Would they go without a French guy is a big deal. The difference between Brisson and Zito at GM level, and why I think some GMs work and some GMs don't. Some agents work as GMs and some don't. And I'm not saying Brisson wouldn't work. He might, but I think that. Remember, Zito was not a top tier agent like Brisson. He was like, I don't know, any of the big agents, top agents, like even like Alan Walsh, who have like the big name players. Zito specialized in finding players that were being missed by everybody else.
Yeah,
and like Tim Thomas, Yanni, Tim Thomas is probably the best example. John Madden, Brian Rafalski.
And correcting pronunciation when he needs to.
Right. Rafalski, Niemi, and just other guys that he had too that were really and Panarin was a guy that he had before. So I think that agents that are that kind of that don't get the guys automatically, but work and find the real gems. Those are the kind of guys that have the GM mind of like finding, because it's finding those third and fourth line guys that make a GM really good. I think because signing the big guys is a no brainer.
I mean, I'll tell you this: if Bergevin does keep his job, it's only on the promise that he gets a big name head coach.
Yeah,
and maybe I'm wrong. I think there's a chance that Babcock goes to Montreal.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you know what? This could be the time where he all of a sudden enters it, because there was a report where Babcock was seen at MSG. It's not like the Rangers are in the playoffs. We don't know if he got interviewed, but it does make me wonder now if he's starting to get looked at behind the scenes. And
well, if he was really seen at MSG, if he was seen at MSG, there's no question he was interviewed. You know, like I think if he really was there, I mean, he's not going to. He's coaching a team in Saskatchewan. Like, why would he be mad?
Yeah,
no, he works for NBC. It's in Connecticut. You know,
and believe me, anything to get him off TV.
No, you know, you're absolutely right. And the funniest thing was, I forgot to tell you, this is hilarious. My son with a great line. We'll end with this. I'm watching Babcock talk on television, in a hotel on our Panther excursion thing, watching Babcock speak. And he says to me, that guy looks like a dehydrated Tucker Carlson. and if you really look at Babcock and Tucker Carlson together, it actually is so true.
There's a great age difference. It's not fair to Mike.
It's a huge age difference, but you know, he does look like a dehydrated Tucker Carlson.
It's true. Actually, I like that.
It's really weird. All right. That's all the time we have for today. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey tomorrow. A big announcement, a big fun thing to talk about tomorrow on Hockey Buzz. We will see you tomorrow, I think at 2, right? 2 o'clock tomorrow.
2.
See you then.